All right, today we're diving into an absolutely epic West African legend. We're talking about a story with everything. A city dying of thirst, a terrifying monster, and one single act of courage that, believe it or not, is said to have forged an entire civilization, the House Estates.
So that brings up a huge question, right? How is a civilization born? Does it take centuries of trade, a bunch of grand conquests, or could it all be sparked by just one single pivotal moment? Well, the legend of Dora suggests the answer is yeah, and it's incredibly dramatic.
And that's really the heart of the story we're getting into today. It's this incredibly powerful idea that just one person, someone who refuses to accept a terrible reality, can literally change the entire course of history. Okay, so to really get a feel for this act of defiance, we've got to go back to where it all started. We're talking about the ancient city of Daura in what is now modern-day Nigeria, and this was a city living under the thumb, or maybe the coil, of a very strange and very terrible ruler. You have to picture this. We're in the dry savannah. A reliable source of water isn't just important, it is everything. For Daura, the Kusugu well wasn't just a well, it was their only lifeline. No well, no city. Simple as that. And what does that mean? It means whoever controls the well, they control absolutely everything.
And get this, the giant serpent living in that well wasn't just some random monster. It actually had a name, Sarki. And Sarki is the Hausa word for king. Now this is so important because it completely reframes the story. This isn't just a beast, it's a tyrant.
And just like any tyrant, King Sarki had laws. The people of Daura, they were only allowed to get water once a week, just on Fridays. And the penalty for breaking that rule, you guessed it, death. I mean, can you even imagine trying to live your whole life around that one terrifying restriction? The entire city was completely trapped. So for generations, this was just how it was. This was reality. But then, into this world of fear and tradition, a stranger arrives. And this is where our hero, a warrior named Bayajida, steps onto the scene. And the contrast between him and the locals is just night and day. It shows you exactly why he was the one to spark a change. The people of Daura, they were conditioned to just accept their fate. But Bayajida, he was a traveler, a warrior. He hadn't grown up with this specific fear. So when he looked at the situation, he didn't see an unchangeable reality. He saw an unjust system that needed to be broken. So what happens when an outsider who refuses to play by the rules comes up against an impossible situation? Yeah, a confrontation is pretty much inevitable. And that brings us right to the climax of this whole story. So picture it. Bayajida shows up in town, he's tired, he's thirsty, and he asks for some water. The locals just kind of shake their heads with this resigned helplessness and tell him the serpent decides. For them, that was the end of the conversation. That was their reality. They couldn't even imagine any other way. But Bayajida? Nope, he wasn't having it. He didn't wait for Friday. He didn't care about their traditions. He just ignored all the warnings, pushed past the fear that paralyzed the entire city, and went straight to the source of the whole problem. And in one single, decisive confrontation, he did what no one else had ever dared to do. He killed the serpent. And just like that, it was over. The tyrant's reign was done, the fear was broken, the water was free. So what happens next? I mean, you've just single-handedly liberated an entire city. As you can imagine, Bayajida's actions earned him more than just a thank you. They actually set in motion the creation of a whole new dynasty. And we have to remember, this act was so much more than just killing a monster. It was deeply symbolic. By killing Sarsi, the king, he completely destroyed a system of control that was built on fear. He literally returned power, the power over life itself, back to the people. The city's ruler, Queen Dorama, was so blown away that she offered to marry him. Now, the story goes, he first married her handmaiden, a woman named Magajea, and they had a son, Karbagari. A little later, Bayajida married the queen herself, and their son was named Bawo. Now, you need to remember these two sons, because their destinies and the kingdoms they create are very, very different. And this is the point where the story really transforms. It stops being just a hero's tale and becomes a full-blown creation myth. Bayajida's actions and the family he started literally become the foundation for a whole new political map. Okay, so here's how that lineage shaped everything. Bayu, that's the son of the queen, remember, he had 6 sons. And together, they went on to found the 7 most powerful and, let's say, legitimate kingdoms. They were called the House of Agwai, which means the 7 true states. But what about the other son? Well, Karbagri, the son of the handmaiden, his descendants founded another 7 states, known as the Banzabagwai. So right there in the legend, you have a clear political hierarchy being established, one that would define this entire region for centuries to come.
And this is what's so cool. This shows the real-world legacy of the myth. These weren't just names in a story. The House of Bakwai, states like Kano and Katsina, became major historical powers. We're talking huge centers of trade, culture, and influence that formed the very heart of Hausa civilization.
Okay, but let's take a step back and think about this. Was there really a giant serpent in a well? Or, and this is what many historians think, is the serpent a powerful metaphor? Maybe a symbol for a ruling class of priests who use superstition and fear to control the city's most vital resource, its water.
Whether it was real or not, the legend serves this incredibly powerful purpose. It's like a foundational charter for a people. It explains a huge social and political shift, that exact moment when power moved from an old guard of, let's call them spiritual tyrants, to a brand new dynasty of warrior kings. You know, the story of Dara is ancient, but its theme is absolutely timeless. It's a story about how controlling a critical resource is a way to control people, and how sometimes it takes an outsider's courage to break that control. So that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. What are the serpents of our world today? What systems or people or ideas control the things we all need to survive?